You remember where you were at the time this was going on, and the day the verdict came in, you usually remember where you were that day, too. Now, this was all before O.J. eventually capitulated. This kicked off one of the most publicized trials in American history, and a bloody glove seen, well, around the world. Take a look.
All right, Deputy Jex, would you just take a step back, please? Thank you.
Can we ask him to straighten his fingers and extend them into the glove as one normally might put a glove on?
Yeah, I object to this statement by counsel.
All right, he appears to have pulled the gloves on, counsel. All right, will you show that to the jury, Mr. Simpson, in that manner? Thank you. Other hand, please.
Remember, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Maybe I can demonstrate this graphically. Let me show you something. This is a knit cap. I'm gonna put this knit cap on. And you've been seeing me for a year. If I put this knit cap on, who am I? I'm still Johnny Cochran with a knit cap. And if you look at O.J. Simpson over there, and he has a rather large head, O.J. Simpson in a knit cap from 2 blocks away is still O.J. Simpson. It's no disguise. It's no disguise. It makes no sense. It doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
For many Americans, that seemed like an incredibly weak defense amid a ton of forensic and circumstantial evidence stacked against O.J. Simpson, but the jury disagreed. Take a look.
In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA097211. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information. Superior Court of the State of California, County of Los Angeles, in the matter of the people of the State of California versus Orenthal James Simpson. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Ronald Lyle Goldman.
Of course, there's so much more to the story. In 2016, one juror admitted that she and many others in the almost all African-American jury thought O.J. was guilty, but used not guilty, that verdict, as payback for the Rodney King beating. Now, ultimately, O.J. was found liable in a civil court for the killings, but one of the only ways the victims' families were able to collect from Simpson was by publishing his book titled If I Did It. Now, the bizarre, pretty brazen book detailed how O.J. believes the murders of Brown and Goldman could have happened if he did it. Now, despite his acquittal in '95, O.J. did spend a significant portion of his life behind bars. In 2008, he was sentenced to 33 years in prison for armed robbery and kidnapping, but he was later paroled in 2017. And in his last video before his death, Simpson said he was doing just great. Take a look.
Hey, let me take a moment to say thank you to all the people who reached out to me. My health is good. I mean, obviously I'm dealing with some issues, but hey, I think I'm just about over it, and I'll be back on that golf course, hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Around Los Angeles, O.J. Simpson was well known as extremely charismatic, friendly person. But those who knew him best, they saw a dark side. The Juice had a violent temper, and the rest is history. O.J. Simpson dead at 76. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Is it time to complete your continuing ed? I'm about to show you how quick and easy it is to register and start our...
Just call him Joe Antoinette. The White House rolling out the red carpet for a swanky state dinner with the Japanese Prime Minister, while regular Americans are feeling the pain from yet another devastating inflation report. Washington got to schmooze with big tech billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Hollywood celebs like Robert De Niro. Bill and Hillary were walking around like they own the place, even though they're never getting the keys back. And boy, was it a feast. The elites gorging on house-cured salmon, dry-aged ribeye steak, and fava beans. And while they got to fill their bellies, a new report claims that an alarming number of Americans are skipping meals just so that they can afford their home. And this has got to sting. A voter panel on Biden's favorite cable news show, Morning Joe, is slamming Bidenomics.
We hear from voters in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Undecided voters. Here are their answers when they're asked about how President Biden is doing on the economy. Take a listen.
Raise your hand if you think President Trump's policies on the economy would be better for your family personally. Raise your hand. All right, so that is everybody.
I feel like he doesn't even take accountability.
When he's talking about the economy doing stellar, he's talking about the stock market. He's not looking at homelessness or joblessness. He's not at Evie's point and thinking about how much it costs to go to the grocery store. And he's gaslighting literally everyone in the process.
But Biden's defenders are doing their best to brainwash voters into thinking that the economy is doing great.
Social media and the misrepresentation, disinformation, all of those things are out there, and that's the battle that we have to fight, and we've got to do a better job of fighting it more effectively.
We just got breaking news. The consumer price index increased at a faster than expected pace last month, a signal that inflation remains stubbornly high.
Okay, Jesse, I'll start with you. Even the undecided voters on that panel with Morning Joe were complaining and basically saying Joe's in denial. He doesn't understand how much we're hurting. Do you think that Joe, Morning Joe, and Mika were trying to send a message to Biden? They know he watches every morning.
It depends on if they knew what they were going to hear first. I don't know if they knew what the answers were first, but that looked like, to me, the first time they'd interviewed anybody besides themselves. We have Johnny. Now, Johnny goes out to the streets and he gets the pulse of the people. I don't think they've gotten the pulse. I think their only pulse is the studio, and that's not going to cut it. Disinformation, they actually put out a report that said inflation is a good thing last year. And the expectation is that inflation is going to cool to a point where he's going to come and have a little runway going into November. But that's not going to happen. So I have a little advice for the libs and Richard. Because you can't bring inflation down fast enough, you have to say this. You have to say Donald Trump will make inflation worse. You have to say Donald Trump will let Russia just rip through Ukraine and make Putin's price hike even bigger. You have to say Trump's tax cuts are going to make inflation worse. You're going to say Trump's greedy CEO buddies are going to keep gouging you, and this billionaire doesn't even know what the price of milk is anyway, so don't fall for it. That's what they have to do. Now, why did I just say that? Because I am so bored of saying the same thing for 4 years.
Okay, all right, Richard, would you like to answer that? You know, Jim Clyburn, says, you know, that people are in denial, that they're not really seeing how Bidenomics is helping them. I mean, people are every day at the grocery store seeing it.
Look, I think there's a couple things. I agree with Jesse's point that there is a clear contrast to be made between the current occupant of the White House and the former occupant of the White House, right? I think when you hear Donald Trump talk about the economy that he wants for the American people, he reminisces about 2018 or 2017, but you rarely ever hear him talk about 2025 or 2026 or 2027 or the plan, what he's going to do when he wins. He just reminisces about the past. And so I think all those arguments are true, Jesse. Thanks for that. But I also
think they're going to work because everybody remembers that inflation was low during the Trump administration.
But I also think that there has to be some contrition from this White House and saying, listen, the inflation's not exactly where we want it to be, right? But here are the things we're doing to make your life easier at home. One thing that we're doing is this. We are capping the cost of late fees on credit cards to $8 a month, which means that will save the American people and working families up to $12 billion every year. We've already capped insulin payments to $35 a month for senior citizens. Not to mention the fact that we have the longest sprint of job growth. We've seen the GDP grow, And while you're not feeling it yet, these impacts are coming your way because we're working on it and we're actively working on it. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, we have a candidate that's talking about the 2020 election or how the economy was doing in 2017, or like you said, he doesn't know the price of milk or the price of eggs or the price of gas or the price of anything for that matter.
You know what, Dana? Richard is saying that, they're just not feeling those benefits yet. Here's the difference. You go to the supermarket every way. Yeah.
Yeah, and just if you look at the increases are incredible for the stuff that you really need. And then, so if you're at the grocery store and you see people who are looking at their cart and they're like, I guess I have to put this back, right? That's a terrible feeling for anybody. And if that's happening all across the country, they do have a serious problem. A couple of things on this. One, who is the White House's powerhouse communicator on the economy? They don't have one. On any sort, they put Pete Buttigieg out a lot.
Some to-dos show up.
Right? The press secretary is not convincing people. John Kirby has his hands full with national security issues. Yet Kamala Harris is not calming people down about inflation. Certainly the president isn't. It's the #1 issue. They don't have anybody out there talking about immigration or inflation. I can't figure it out. I don't know what's going on. Bernstein's pretty good. And if you have him on TV, believe me, he will just keep talking. You will never get a word in edgewise, and he will try to bang you over the head with it. Good. But the other thing is, on the undecided voters panel, what's super interesting about it is MSNBC didn't do those interviews. It was separate. It was Mark Halperin did that himself, and he did it on a thing called Two-Way. You can check out. He's going to do several more of these, because nobody else is doing it, right? So he's out there saying, okay, I'm just going to have these focus groups, and you can take them or leave them. A lot of people know Mark Halperin from the political world. I'm sure I think he used to appear on Morning Joe. And what was really stunning, we didn't show you, is Mika and Joe's face, Mika's face in particular, after they hear from these independent voters.
Yes,
and it's almost as if they start to realize, like, oh my gosh, we got a problem.
Yeah. And Greg, the amazing thing is Ron Klain, former chief of staff, I mean, no one knows the story better than he does. He says he's sick and tired of Joe Biden going to cut a ribbon at a bridge a couple times a week. He ought to go into a supermarket.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to credit MSNBC for actually running that, but then I realized they probably didn't even know what they were running. They had no idea. They were so surprised. I'm surprised Joe didn't have a cardiac arrest, because that is what happens when the media loosens its grip on the narrative. You actually hear the truth. I'm sure they had no idea. I'm sure they were devastated. I'm sure that Mika was thinking, oh my God, if that process is possible. It just killed my talking points. I was going to give them credit. But here is the problem with the Dems, the people who can have the power over the purse. Money, as it grows, has diminishing returns. If something costs $20 and it now costs $40, that matters to you. If you need $200 to cover the cost of what cost $100 before, that hurts. But when Biden hears $4 trillion instead of $2 trillion, it means nothing to him. This is why a family struggling with food bills, and keeps struggling, Biden can happily bribe art history majors with billions of our tax money in loan theft, because to him, it's just pennies.
Okay, up next, radical Rashida Tlaib is condemning Fox News, but not Death to America.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.
Whatever you do, do it for less.
State dinner with the current president, by the way. I think that's strange. But in contrast, just like when we showed you the funeral with Donald Trump there with the people, mourning with them as Joe Biden is with all the celebrities across the street, Donald Trump went to a Chick-fil-A yesterday and was talking with the workers, and it was such an organic moment because you had all these people that obviously knew that the president was there, but were Trump supporters as well, minorities. Watch.
Good-looking people, wow.
And I love those, what you have here. Let me see. That's beautiful. Wow. It's art, right? So you know everything okay? So can I have 30 milkshakes? And also some chicken. I'm going to take care of the customers. Is business good? Making a lot of money? Everyone get rich, right?
So he asked, "Are you a Republican?" And she said yes. Had she said no, would he still have ordered the 30
And I
minutes?
think he was talking. Was he talking about? Did one of the workers have a nose ring? And that's what he was saying. That's beautiful. It's art. And he pointed to his nose.
Right.
I love when Trump does this kind of stuff. It's so funny. And we've seen him do it before. Remember after his first court appearance, he went to that Cuban restaurant.
That's
brought
right.
Cuban food for everybody. Now it's Chick-fil-A and milkshakes for
So
everybody.
the second part of it I thought was really telling. Number one, unscripted. You have a very scripted press conference out there in the Rose Garden with the Chinese Prime Minister, and he has the questions, he's got the answers, he's scrambling to find out the order. Then you have another guy who walks into a fast food restaurant in downtown Atlanta and just says, let me order some of the food you have and let me just smile and find out what the people think. I don't know how this could go. If it went bad, there were plenty of cameras.
100%.
But not only did it go good dealing with the people behind the camera, I could see the raw feed. When he went up to Michaela Montgomery, he had another extemporaneous conversation. Listen to this exchange that even USA Today had to write up as a positive.
I don't care what the media tells you, Mr. Trump. We support you.
We love you.
Okay, 4 p.m. We do 4 p.m.
Come here, let me give you a hug.
Please
Just to put it in perspective, Atlanta is the modern day Black Wall Street, where all black businesses flourish. This is a highly, probably about 70%, 67% of black folks that are there. So if you're a Democrat, you're worried about moments like this. And this just takes me before Donald Trump decided to declare his presidency. He was known as the hip hop guy, the person that was cited in all the lyrics because he was a money guy. This is why he relates with people. And Brian, I think your point is correct. You got Joe Biden doing all these kitchen table things across the country. All of them are scripted. He's acting like he's buying chicken, talk with the people.
No, he bought fried chicken for a black family.
I know,
and goes in and sits at their kitchen table and orders something else.
It's much like Hillary and the hot sauce comment as well. But you got Donald Trump, who's being himself, relating to the people. If he can do this in every major city in the country, Democrats should be worried.
Yeah. And there was the one person that said that in the audio, or in the crowd, said that Chick-fil-A is the Lord's chicken, and he's like, and then former President Trump's like, it's the Lord. Democrats are going to hate that he called it the Lord's chicken.
Well, because they called it that because the family that owns it is very religious, and Christian
closed on
family.
Sundays.
Right, they're closed on Sundays,
And there might be a Bible mention.
They want their on the cups. They want their employees to be able to worship on Sundays. So while this is going on, and by the way, the food is delicious.
I want to add one fast food anecdote. So All Americans in Massapequa, where the president showed up 2 weeks ago, and as he's driving back, All Americans, a legendary one-off hamburger place has grilled cheese and tuna in a hot dog bun. The president gets word of it. He stops. They ordered 200 hamburgers, and they didn't use his name. So the guy at All American goes, okay. The owners, they said, I got to get 200 hamburgers. It's got to be done quickly. They do it. And all of a sudden, someone walks up and goes, do you have the Trump hamburgers? He goes, what are you talking about? He goes, these are for Donald Trump. He goes, yeah. So Trump came out, he had him, sent a note back, said you can golf on any golf course. And the owner of the burger place said, I've been waiting 22 years for a moment like this.
Wow.
That's great.
And it's just it's a legendary place. Brian Setzer, Seinfeld.
But again, real Americans, average day.
And he found out where the hamburger place is in town.
So while all of that was going on, as Lawrence was talking about before, President Biden had a state dinner honoring the Japanese Prime Minister, and it was a star-studded event. You have Bill and Hillary Clinton there, Robert De Niro, Jeff Bezos, and his wife Tim Cook. They ate house-cured salmon, dry-aged ribeye steaks. Paul Simon provided the entertainment. You see them all walking in there with their fancy outfits on.
Indeed. Jamie Dimon was there, Tim Cook was there, Jeff Bezos was there, Robert De Niro was there. Robert De Niro was asked by one of the reporters, what do you think about 2024? And he said, what do you think? So essentially he was channeling one of his characters. But before the very fancy state dinner, which could not have been much different than, walking into a Chick-fil-A, it turns out Joe Biden, once again, when they have these bilateral things, at the conclusion of remarks by the Japanese Prime Minister and the President, they take 2 questions from each. Of course, Fox News is never on the list, and we know that in years, Joe Biden has never put Fox on the list of pre-approved reporters, but nonetheless, not only is Fox News not on it, but Joe Biden has trouble remembering who's next. Watch. Okay. Third, the next question. Who do I call on next? Hang on a second. I got my list here. Hang on. I apologize.
Well, it just wasn't that moment. It was when they were.
Wow, this is new.
Yeah, switch to H&R Block.
Guess the Black Crow. Both the Prime Minister and Joe Biden have to give a statement. And you got the Japanese Prime Minister that is no notes or anything, just going, obviously in a foreign country, okay, and is able to do it. And you got the current Commander-in-Chief that has to read off a little note. And it just shows you the contrast between one country's strong leader and our president who can't remember.
Yeah, and there was this one moment where he was criticizing the abortion laws in certain states where they restrict abortion access, and he said that he's the president of the 20th century.
Right. Whoops.
And then corrected it and said, oh, 21st century.
Well, a couple of things that I'm sure MSNBC must have cut away from because the president had inaccurate statements to make, and they don't like inaccurate information. Like, for example, when he says inflation's high, but it was a lot higher when I took over. No, it was 1.9% skyrocketing. That, and he also had another thing where he talked about the border with the former president. 2 things that are totally inaccurate back to back, but it's just amazing how obvious it is that he's scripting the questions. I would love to know. Does a Bloomberg reporter get submit his question or her question ahead of time? These reporters, did they?
It looks like he has the answers
right
already,
away.
Right there.
He's got the answers. He's reading off a card. How would he know that? Is he Kreskin?
That would
Great
be
question. It is a good question.
Kreskin would be great in the audience. I'll tell you what, at the state dinner last night, I was reading a report that Robert De Niro was channeling Robert De Niro. It turns out the Prime Minister of Japan was channeling James T. Kirk because at one point he said that he said he hoped the unshakable relationship between Japan and the United States would boldly go where no man has gone before.
That is a Star Trek reference at the state dinner last night.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the...
But tonight we begin in Las Vegas, where O.J. Simpson has died from prostate cancer at the age of 76. During his life, the former NFL running back
I will fracture your feeble mind. must be some kind of mistake.
Well-earned victory. We must, however, stay vigilant, deep inside the nightmare.